I trained like a pro player for 30 days. Why? Well, this was actually last season, and the end of the season was a month away, and I hadn't hit a new peak in a long time. I'd always been a game or two off before I ran into some pro players in GC2, so my peak MMR of 1697 has been untouched for a while. This is where this challenge came in. I teamed up with a coach named Jonk who set out and trained me up to finally beat my peak. I was starting at 1530 MMR, which is 167 MMR, or around 18 games below my peak. And with only 30 days before the rank gets reset, we were on a deadline. First thing we did was take a look at a few replays so John could build up our coaching sessions. The immediate things to work on for the first week was building speed and getting more value out of each play. Now, I thought I was alright speed-wise beforehand, but then again, everyone does. So it was kind of nice to be sat down and proven wrong here. Jonk immediately broke down things for me in a way that was very simple to understand and to implement. He said, in threes, if you aren't challenging straight away, you don't challenge. The idea behind this is that if you aren't ready to go straight away, someone else is, as threes is a very fast game mode, and so if you go for that ball with a little bit of hesitation, you're going to get beat every single time. Since threes is a fast game mode, hesitating to challenge a ball that has freshly come out of a previous challenge can leave you and your team vulnerable to counterattacks. Getting more value out of each play was centered around understanding the value of the first man. While you're first man, your role is to apply pressure and challenge, and that is done both on and off the ball. Jonk explained the term playing extension and what it means, and that was while rotating back, if you can find a bump or a demo that doesn't take you out of the game, you should do so. He also pointed out that at times I would tunnel vision too hard on just moving back the defense without going for a bump. So after the first few replay reviews and these things in mind, he built the first week's training routine, and oh boy was this in-depth and challenging. We start with 5 minutes of recovery / movement mayhem, which Jonk described as pushing myself to try and flip out or lose control of my car while going as fast as I can around the field, and then forcing myself to recover as fast as I could. A small exercise that builds up your in-game speed. Next was 5 minutes of speed training, a similar exercise but a bit more controlled, moving around the pitch as fast as you can, all while maintaining momentum both with and without the ball, as this is where your recoveries and speed / momentum management will be tested and trained. You would then finish the warm-up when you feel comfortable with the car's movement. Next up would be the training pack section. All training packs were required to be fully completed. Number 1 would be Biddles Consistency, where the goal would be to get good placement or power, or get a good mix of both before moving on to the next shot. Training pack 2 was Corrupted V3, a training pack where almost every single shot is asking you to hit a double tap or a sidewall redirect. The goal of this pack was speed, cleanliness, good movement, and creativity in each shot. The third pack was fast redirects and aerials. The only goal of this pack was that no shot should bounce and that I should look for a double tap if possible. This section would, on average, take 30 to 40 minutes and would help me in becoming more consistent at scoring these double tap outplays / opportunities in game, just like you see the pros do today. Next up were the ground training packs, also mandatory. The first being Catch and Dribble, where the aim was consistency of control when catching the ball and letting me play around creativity when finishing the shot. And the second pack being Biddles Catches, sharing the same goal as the first. This took on average about 20 minutes and helps to develop better ground play and being able to catch and move as fast as possible, as you see the pros do today. Then we would move on to the workshop maps, where I would do 1 rings map and 1 dribbling map, each one taking about 15 minutes. This is then before we factor in the 3 optional training packs he recommended and the 4 optional workshop maps he listed as well, where he then said in total the training should take about 2 to 3 hours a day. And so I trained. Every day before stream, I would jump on and religiously grind through the roughly 2 hours of training. I would get stuck and then push through. I would get sick of trying to hit certain shots and push through again. I would try to push myself to get more creative with my double touches. I would try to beat my time in the dribbling course. I would aim to only score goals over 100k in the ground shooting section. And when it came time to bring all of that back into ranked, I was on a whole new level within just the first week. I was hitting way more double taps. I was hitting sidewall redirects. I was applying more pressure as a first man. I was going up faster, getting control of the ball faster. I was climbing the ranks way faster than I ever had. Suddenly, I meant more as a player on the field. I could open the field up to more plays simply by being better positioned, which came from understanding my value as a first man, and being fast enough to move to where I'm needed. And while I ran into the odd pro player every now and then, the games were actually close, and in some cases, I won. At the end of the first week, I had already gained 100 MMR. Sitting around 1630 MMR, well into GC2 again, I messaged Jonk and let him know how the week had gone. An insane first week of training which led to insane results. I couldn't be happier. And on top of this, Jonk let me know something which I'm actually very excited to share with you all. On top of coaching me for a month, he'd also been working to build his own coaching course with a few other people over at the Rocket League University. Now, as much as I would love to gatekeep Jonk and keep him to myself, I feel I should tell you. And so, at the Rocket League University, at RLU, every student gets personalized attention with their rank-specific training routines and resources tailored to your unique needs and gaming style. You get to dive into their enriching university-themed program that runs for an intensive 12 weeks. Their aim is to keep you immersed, engaged, and always learning, with their RLCS and CIL coaches to take you there every step of the way. The results speak for themselves. This is designed for everyone, with staff and coaches from all over the world to cater for players anywhere from gold through to grand champ looking to take their game to the next level. The majority of students witness a noticeable improvement in their gameplay within just the first 4 weeks of joining, like I'm sure you've already seen with me, going up 100 MMR in just 1 week. If you are looking for a 12-week intensive coaching course with all the best resources available to you and at an affordable price, head down to the link in the description and join their Discord to take your game to the next level. With our first week of training done, Jonk changed things up going into the next week. This week, the focus was more on being more aggressive and confident in myself, and training that through being more confident with my freestyle mech. He explained, practicing freestyle mechanics is one of the best ways to train your aerial card control as a beginner and intermediate player, as long as you are aware that you shouldn't do it in-game if you can't do it. Now, I know I'm comfortable hitting resets and air dribbles, ceiling shots and everything like that. I've been practicing them for a while now, but I've always held myself back from going for them in-game because I didn't want to miss and make things hard for my teammates. But Jonk reiterated, this week was building confidence and aggression. And so, this was the training routine that I was given every day of week 2. 1 hour of free play, with the note that the biggest difference between pros and us is the ability to get touches that keep possession for as long as possible. Remember to never be satisfied. If I land something or get a nice shot, think on how to further it and keep control of that ball for longer. This is all about training control. Other than that, the usual stuff like setting up air dribbles, flip resets, stuff to perform the perfect setup from awkward angles and such. The last thing you want to do is autopilot and just bang the ball from side to side. That is a complete waste of your time and will result in very little improvement. He then sent me into custom training. 15 minutes with this shooting training pack, with the note attached saying shooting is 80% how you approach the ball, then 20% is the actual shot. Make sure you're approaching the ball optimally and not rushing to it to make it easy for you to shoot accurately. Another 20 minutes on the corrupted V3 training pack from the first week, as this did become a favorite of mine. I still do this training pack every single day. And then another 20 minutes on this Backboard Clears training pack. He did add that this was quite boring to do sometimes, but it was really important to do it. And then first touch practice for 30 minutes. He added to this saying, when doing this pack, you can focus on one of two things. A, being the first touch, or B, a specific mechanic that you are trying to do after the first touch. He said, try to only focus on one at a time. He then adds and says, I find I improve faster when I'm only focusing on one thing. It's important to practice and get consistent at stuff like chain rapid flip resets and flip reset musties. They improve your mechanics and card control a lot, even if it sounds counterintuitive. After this, I was sent back into the workshop maps where I would try things like the Eversax dribbling map and the air dribble challenge. Overall, this training routine took me roughly 3 hours a day some days, and would get quite tiring in a way that it sometimes felt a little repetitive, but I knew it was helping. Each aspect of the training was getting easier, and I felt like I was getting more consistent across the board. My shots were getting more accurate. I was having a much easier time with the actual freestyle mechanical stuff, to the point where I was just randomly going for stuff that would work out. The training packs were a little tough to sink time into some days, but I would just turn on a YouTube video and listen to that in the background while I played through them. But this wasn't even really the proper training for the week, nor the next. You see, Jonk had added at the bottom of the training routine that week 2 and 3 would pretty much be the same, but the ranked games were where it really came time to train and learn. He had written, most important thing in the whole routine, ranked. This takes everything you practice and puts you in a real situation where you have to execute the mechanic or decision perfectly, or you get punished for it. Don't be afraid to go for aerial plays when you can. If you're getting scored on because you miss a flip reset, the solution isn't not to go for flip resets, it's to get better at flip resetting. Goalkeeping is another huge thing. If you suck at goalkeeping, don't try to compensate by early challenging. Instead, focus on actually improving your goalkeeping. That being said, everything is best in moderation, so for the most part, play to your strengths and focus on your weaknesses off the field in training. He then followed this with a little section specifically about twos. He says, the best way to play twos, in my humble opinion, is to go as fast as you possibly can while focusing on your recoveries, and then in brackets, very important part. Playing a super fast and dominant style is the best way to improve absolutely everything. You'll be moving faster, so you'll have to get used to controlling the ball at faster speeds. You'll have less time to make decisions, so you'll become better at making them faster. Your recoveries will improve since you are trying to stay high speed all the time, and you will terrify your opponents and create opportunities you would not have otherwise had, because there is nothing more tilting than playing against someone who plays just like this. The most important thing is to make sure you are playing just outside of your comfort zone. If you are playing too crazy, you'll end up not controlling the ball at all and leaving your teammates in bad spots. So the difficult part is finding that area where you are uncomfortable with the speed, but not to the point where you are completely throwing. Beware though, you're gonna suck a lot and probably drop a lot of MMR at the start. He then adds right at the very end that my goal over the next 2 weeks was to not only do the 3 hours of training every day, but to increase the volume of ranked games I played every day. Now I know you guys probably think that Rocket League YouTubers play 8 hours a day every single day anyway because it's our job, but I can almost guarantee you that it's not the case for any of us. Before the challenge, the only time I ever played Rocket League was on stream. I always felt that if I play off stream, I'd get tired of the game faster and I would risk burning out. And when it's your job, you don't want to burn out. So it was a bit of a change when I went from playing 3 hours a day to training for 3 hours a day before I even started playing on stream, and then streaming for another 4 to 5 hours to get more games in every day. But that was the routine, so I stayed committed. Now, during these next 2 weeks, my rank went all over the place. Some days I was really onto it, climbing up 40, 30 MMR. Some days I was missing everything, struggling to hit even the simple shots. I would mostly attribute these low days to me being run down and tired, but it could have just been an off day as well. Jonk had mentioned, however, that fluctuating MMR is a supernatural part of learning and improving short and long term. The MMR will come with steady improvement, but that might take a little bit of time. I would grind away for hours in training and feeling good and then play for 5 straight hours in ranked, only to gain 6 MMR at the end of the night, which was more so mentally draining than physically. And at the end of that 2-week period, I was sitting around 1660 MMR in twos. 100 MMR gained in the first week, 30 MMR gained over the next 2 weeks, and I still had 37 MMR left before I had reached my peak again, but now I only had 7 days left. I knew it was possible, but I had to really get myself together here. Obviously, the higher up the ranks I go, the harder the opponents I face. And in Oceania, you will often find pro players lurking around GC2. But it did mean that sometimes I would get placed on those pro players' teams. Because of this, I knew this last week was going to be rough. And if I had any hope of reaching a new peak, I needed to go all out in training. My final coaching session with Jonk, he gave me a priority list of what to do when I head the ball. Priority number 1, pass to an uncontested player. Priority number 2, a solo play with a minimum of 2 touches. Priority number 3, a booming clear into open space, preferably where a teammate can reach it. Coming into these last week of games, everything was going to be much harder and much faster. So understanding and nailing this priority list was key to getting better under pressure and being able to stay impactful in the game. As for the actual training routine, surprisingly, Jonk let me develop it myself with suggestions he had drafted up. He'd give me a list of different training packs, exercises, and workshop maps, the benefits of each of them and how long to train them all for. I felt like I could still push myself further than I had the last 2 weeks, and so I decided to double down on that training routine I was already using, but adding an extra workshop map in and spending more time in free play working on the fundamentals. And while this only increased my training time by 15 to 20 minutes, I felt that from here on out, I just wanted to spend as much time in game as I could. And so I did. Every day I spent more and more time in ranked. Day 1, I went down 10 MMR. The next day, down another 13 MMR. Frustrating to say the least, I was feeling a bit defeated knowing I had 5 days to get 60 MMR and had to beat players that had all been at this level much longer and much more consistently than I had. But I didn't let it get to me for too long, as day 3 felt like one of the best days of Rocket League I've played in a very long time. A few games against high ranked players, a few against pros, it didn't matter. I was just focusing on myself and doing what I could to put into practice what I had learned over the past month. And by the end of the session, I had gone up 30 MMR. Now sitting at 1667, I had 4 days to get another 30 points and tie my peak. Day 4 is slightly slower, but we still go up 7. I'm only 3 games away at this point, but I need to sleep, and I leave it tomorrow. So on day 5, I make sure I go into training completely ready. I'm well rested, I've eaten a decent meal, I'm taking this way more seriously than I ever thought I would. And when it comes time to get into ranked, I'm in luck. The first game I get paired with Biddles, a pro player from APAC. We play a solid game and end up winning. Only 2 games to go. The next game I get put up against 2 friends, and while the game ends up being pretty close, I win again. 1 game to go. I am completely ready to get into the next game and beat my peak when I see Biddles again, but he's on the other team. We lose. 2 games to go. 3 games to go. 4 games. I begin to spiral and I have to give myself a break before I lose too much MMR to come back from. Frustrated with myself and how I'd let myself get worried about playing against pro players, I stopped playing for the night and decided to come back the next day. Day 6. The season ends tomorrow. All I need is 4 games. I jump into training, go through the 3 hours and get back in a rank. We're off to a rocky start, but we win the first 2 games. And then a few more games go back and forth. Win 1, lose 1, win 1, lose 1. However, due to the teams not always being even, during the back and forth, I end up winning more MMR than I had lost. Only a little bit at a time, but they added up. By the end of it, I was sitting at 1690 MMR, which meant that this last game wouldn't tie me with my peak, I would break it. And so I loaded up on a wasteland, and immediately my teammate, without calling anything, doesn't go for kickoff and we get scored on. Okay, no worries, still plenty of time here. We spend the next 45 seconds taking a few shots on net, but nothing really coming of it before another minute goes by and I get the chance to go for a play. Ball goes up off the wall, I take off, get a reset, end up being challenged by the defender before this happens. Bit weird, but these things happen. Some more time goes by before the opponent gets a rough shot, giving the ball to my teammate who manages to dribble around the defender. 2-1. And as happy as I am to see us in the lead, this happiness is quickly replaced by frustration as my hesitation stops me from challenging a ball and causing us to get scored on. Now what's worse is that not even 30 seconds later, I make a simple mistake in front of net and basically hand them a goal for free. But once again, plenty of time to come back. The game goes on a little bit with neither team really getting any kind of shot on target before a thrown away possession leaves me in a 1v1 with the opponent, and I had to redeem myself. 3-all. The last minute of the game sees both teams taking shots but neither being able to score. Overtime. Kickoff goes our way and I once again find myself in a 1v1 with my opponent. However, I take a heavy touch and I give it away. Wanting to get more value out of my position, I decide to drive past and pressure a demo on the second player, forcing him to jump and committing him into the corner right behind his teammate, leaving him out of position. My teammate quickly challenges, putting the ball high above him as he scrambles back to net, deciding a squishy save would be the best play. And if he had hit it on target, it probably would have been a goal. But he didn't. He just barely missed. And I was able to easily tap the ball in, winning the game that would put me at my new peak MMR of 1699. 1699. Do you know how it feels to beat your peak and then realize you were literally 1 point from being able to say, oh, I hit 1700 in my peak? You know how much better that sounds than 1699? But besides that point, I had set out on a goal to beat my peak and I had achieved it, all thanks to Sir Jonk, the coach. I left this month of training feeling way more confident in my entire gameplay and had managed to climb even when going up against pros. I later found out that even one of the players in that final game was a pro, and he was on the other team. And so I wanted to give a massive thank you to Jonk for his efforts and dedication to developing an insanely in-depth training routine for me. Half of which I didn't even include in this video, as I would feel it would be taking away from what Jonk and his team is creating over at the Rocket League University course. But I strongly advise those of you who do want to take your game to that next level, please head over and check out what they have to offer. Once again, you can use the link in the description to join the Discord and find out more. For those of you wondering, the training pack codes will all be in the description. I want to say one more thank you to Jonk and his team at Rocket League University. A thank you to you for watching until the end, and I will see you next time.